I said I wasn't going to edit this video. However, I rewatched the video and I felt that I didn't do you guys justice. So my name is Adrienne Brenlinger. I am a kindergarten through fifth grade visual art teacher in the state of Delaware. My presentation is going to start after my introduction here. And just so that you all know, there is all the files of this presentation and all the links are uploaded so that you can have access to anything that you do need. And again, not actually again, you're just hearing this for the first time. But feel free to reach out and contact me. I'd love to talk to you. The biggest reason I decided to do this session was because finally last year, so excited, I really dove into choice-based learning with my second school. My second school is a little bit harder than my first school. One, because I'm only there one day a week. The other reason is because it's a different dynamic of students, and they don't all know me. So gaining their respect and their trust takes a little bit more, takes longer. And last year, I was so excited. I gave these kids, the textile station is really what did it with these kids. They had fun creating their own clothes, and unfortunately, we didn't have the needles at that school. I had to borrow them from my main school, but it took me a while to teach them how to do their sewing. But we used staplers, we used glue. They had a good old time, and they made some of the most interesting dresses and outfits and hats and things. And to see them show off to their teacher when they made these things just made my heart happy. But it also made me realize that they're excited to learn, they're excited to dive into things. You just need to be able to find out what they like and make sure you've got the different tools and different things to provide them. Anywho, so I was really excited to show you how I can manage two schools, different schools, and I wasn't able to do that this year. This year I was fortunate enough to, at the very beginning of the year, 2 weeks into the school year, they put me at my main school, which was good for me, but also a little disheartening because I really wanted to help out those kiddos and see if I could do both. Another thing that I did not mention in this presentation that you're going to see in a little bit, because you're not going to see my face talk, is I am an individual with a disability. So my students with disabilities are a very high priority for me. I have a traumatic brain injury, and the reason I tell you this is because for me, memory can be sometimes an issue. So not having all of my supplies in one place or having to share a room with another teacher, or in my case last year, 4 other teachers, made things a little bit difficult for me. So to throw on top of that choice-based learning sounds very overwhelming. And it's why I never dove into it with my second school in the first place. But it also helped me grow as an individual. It helped me grow as a teacher, and it is really inspiring for my students. I'm happy to see them enjoy art. I'm happy to see them be creative and to learn not only through doing, but also through talking to each other. Hello, and welcome to the Elementary tab for Teaching for Artistic Behavior, Student-Centered Learning, or Choice-Based Art Studio Curriculum Tricks. To be very honest, I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. Unfortunately, I just didn't think I was going to get it right. I wanted it all professional and very laid out so you guys could look at this and say, yeah, that's what I want to do. Every single student-centered or tab or choice-based session that I've been to has been well laid out, almost impeccably, so that I was always afraid that I'd never be able to get that standard. And to be honest, I don't think I ever will. So I started this session, or rather, I requested to do this session because I was very excited because last year, I'm a teacher who teaches at two schools. I have a main school and my second school. I've been at 3 different second schools and haven't done too much teaching for artistic behavior in my second school. I was only there for 1 day. So it was always difficult and I didn't know my students very well. I'd get a new set of students each year, occasionally having some overlap. So I didn't push the teaching for artistic behavior or the choice as much as I did with my main school. I still gave them choice because they deserved it. Just so that you're aware, I am a real teacher. And by that, I mean, like I said, I'm at 2 different schools, or I was at 2 different schools. I had been on a cart. I've taught in many different settings. I teach the general ed population as well as special education. And here you can see on this slide that, you know, I've done a lot of different things, and maybe you'll be able to relate to some of those. The biggest thing is I am a control freak. So why in the world would I do choice-based art when I'm basically putting all of my needs or all of the learning in the hands of my students? That was part of the reason I did it, because I needed to be able to give over that control. I needed the students to be able to have fun. And that's also actually another reason why I'm doing this presentation a little late. As I'm sitting here talking to you, my anxiety is kind of going a little bit because this is the way I taught in the 2000, 2001 school year. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like backtracking with my years. During COVID, so not yet last year, which was the 2021-22 school year, but the year before that, the 2020-2021 school year, I was asked to sit and basically teach a computer and hope that my students listen to my lessons. That was very nerve-wracking for me. So please forgive me if sometimes my slides seem maybe a little choppy. I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to continue on straightforward or if I need to stop every once in a while. So please bear with me. I'm trying my best. As I said, when I taught this way with my students the other year, and I prayed that they watched my videos, I was very, very particular. I was the perfectionist, trying to get my videos perfect so that I could answer any of the questions that I possibly thought my students were going to have and try to figure out what exactly was going to be thought of or, you know, needed. And that was difficult, not speaking to the students. So instead of piecemealing it together like I did with them, just kind of rock with it. So I've taught in 4 different settings in my main school alone. but I've also taught at 3 different schools, which were my second schools, having 5 different principals just at my second schools, being in 3 art rooms and on a card. So again, you might think, why in the world did I decide, being split between schools, to do choice? Because it was hard enough to keep myself straight with all the different things that I needed to do. I decided to do choice because my 5th graders were checking out and I wanted them excited about art. This happened the first couple years that I was teaching, and I just couldn't understand why they were checking out. And yes, it goes a lot back to pedagogy and just students in general at that age, 5th graders. They're starting to feel themselves and feel like, okay, I don't need to do this anymore. So I looked into how I could help get them excited about art. And I did do a research project for my special education class in that. If you'd like to read about that, you can. I am sharing this lesson, or I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking to students. I'm sharing this presentation as well as all of my, not necessarily lesson plans, but my classroom management styles and paper information, as well as portfolios, which are simply folders for the students to put their artwork in, and sketchbooks, and random other ideas. And you can access those using the websites within this presentation. The presentation will be made available to you as well. So anyway, what are some good reasons to do choice or teaching for artistic behavior? Well, I get really excited because I have a lot of students who are pulled from my class for band or orchestra lessons. And I started realizing that they were falling behind, or they would do, a day, maybe 2 days worth of a lesson, and then they would be moving on to the next project. So they never actually finished any of their artwork, which was very disheartening. And how do you grade a student who you don't have anything finished from them? Sure, I could grade them on the process, but when you don't have it completed, have they really learned anything? So this is the positive about doing some choice-based learning, because in this way, they can go at their own pace. When they finish a project, someone else might be on the 2nd or 3rd project, but it allows students to be able to go as fast or as slow as they need. Small budget, not to worry. That's another reason I started doing this. My budget for about 350 to 450 students at my main school was $500, which is not very much. And I'm hoping to get that a little bit bigger. But I found that by doing choice-based learning and doing center teaching, that I didn't need to buy class sets of everything. I noticed class sets were a lot more expensive. So if I did smaller sets and bought them over a period of time, I could keep filling those things without doing a big class set, because a class set is, $100, $150 sometimes of your budget. Well, guess what? That's a fifth of my budget gone. So that's the one positive about choice-based learning. The biggest positive is the differentiated instruction. Like I said before, with the lessons and absentees, it allows our students to work at their own pace. So choice allows for students to buy into what they're doing. It allows them to be the artist. It allows them individuality. And during this time especially, our students need to feel like they are individuals. They need to feel that they are important. Sometimes I look at them now and I feel like they only feel like they're important and nothing else matters. But in reality, the students do need to know that they matter and their ideas are important. So, how did I get started? Is that a loaded question? I did tell you it was because I was concerned about my fifth graders and my fourth graders as well. And how do you get started? So there's a variety of different ways, and I bet you I'm not even going to touch on a couple of different ways that I've not yet experienced. But you can work on choices being the topic, okay? Larger topics, for example, I have students, let's say, product design. Now, for my second graders next year, they're all going to be doing a water bottle. However, my third graders, when they do product design, they get to pick the product they get to design. It helps them in the growing process to go from a little more narrowed to a lot more choice as they grow up. They are asked to not only come up with ideas, but they're asked to meld ideas together. And it's a lot harder for us to ask our younger students to do that. But if we grow them in that manner and we allow them the choice to begin with, I think it'll be easier for them to get to those steps later on. So topic is one way. Another way is allowing them to use different supplies. Me personally, I like to be able to control the topic, I've realized, because I can kind of pause a lesson and say, okay, this is what we've been doing. The next class they come in and I say, okay, I'm going to do a demonstration. I start my classes out with a demonstration, either with a demonstration on media or a demonstration on how to draw or a technique. And the students may use that during that class, or they may use it down the road. It also helps students because, kids forget things, but one kid is going to remember and they're going to help another kid down the road, and they're going to share and they're going to learn from each other. The other reason that I do choice-based learning is because of my students with special needs. It allows me to adapt the lessons to what they need and the level that they are working at. Sometimes I think my paras are a little unsure about that, and it's a little confusing, but we're slowly working it in. So some of these are some tools that I've made for my students to use, as well as different things that I've purchased. But we do have a textile table, a painting table, a drawing table, a media table, a paper collage table, which next year I think I'm going to make it more into a crafting of paper, because we'll be able to use paper at the textile table as well, and we'll be able to use paper at the 3D table. So those are my 6 tables that I have. How I first began was I sat down my students and we all drew a landscape. It was step by step. I showed them how to do it. They could add whatever they wanted choice-wise. Then we did self-portraiture or portraiture. Same thing. They then had the choice to add whatever style of clothing or glasses or anything they wanted, or do different designs in the bathroom. Again, all of this was just done in pencil. We did a still life, and then we did a free choice item, which was awesome, but then they weren't finished. So all the students took pictures of these, which I'm very fortunate. I do have a few iPads that my principal purchased for me a few years ago. I was given 6 iPads, and the district said, "Oh, you're using technology, great!" And they gave me 2 more iPads. Working with technology has been amazing because although the rest of the teachers got them and they didn't have to dig into their budgets for it, technology has worked with me. They found extra iPads. When all the other teachers had to give back their iPads, technology has worked with me in order to get me what I need and to make all the iPads work a lot easier for my students. So I'm very, very thankful to my technology department within my district. So again, I'm fortunate for that. We are a one-to-one district where each of our students has a Chromebook. I personally don't like Chromebooks for art because they don't have a rear-facing camera, or yeah, they don't have a rear-facing camera. They have a front-facing camera, which when you're doing art, it's not good for photography. So it's not really helpful. Anyway, so I did on this slide, this is how I started my rotations. They did those drawings and then they would go to their tables and work on finishing their drawings. As in, they would take different fabric and collage material on it, or they could do the same thing with paper. So these here are little videos that I've done. I'm not going to click on all of them because that would be a little ridiculous. But these are 3 different types of ways that you could use textile. This is outlining with yarn. This is, like I said, collaging with fabric. And this is actually making different items from fabric. So I used to give these papers that explained what they needed to do and they had to check it off. Those papers were a little confusing to the students, so I needed to change that too. So the moving of the caddies with the specific supplies was very confusing to me. It was also problematic to the students because the kids weren't always ready for the next caddy. And if they were ready for the next caddy, sometimes they weren't sure what lesson they were actually on. Kids also felt limited to what was only in the caddy. Although I have supplies in different places in the room, and they were told that they're allowed to go get those supplies, they weren't always sure that that was acceptable. And sometimes they didn't know where to go. They couldn't remember. So not much got done. So I moved these caddies along. Again, this here is the choice base, and it told them how the rotation went. And I explained this for them in a YouTube video. It was helpful to the students, but they needed a little bit more. Every student, every table has the mini tub, which has, their pencils, erasers, crayons, color pencils, and they had a Caesar tub, which has scissors and glue. I have a variety of scissors and a variety of different glues so that the kids are able to understand how to use those things. So again, I had some trouble with that. So I got another idea. The students would do the assignments, but I allowed the students to select the table that they were going to work at. This is, in my opinion, the best. It works best for me, might not work best for you. There are times when I have certain classes that just can't handle moving around the room. Some students need to be separated. And so this can be problematic with some classes. This was less confusing for me, so it was great, but the students were still confused. So I realized they needed a checklist. So this is what I came up with last year. And after giving it to my students, and even when I made it up, it looked very overwhelming. It folds in half, so it's a folder. On one side, it has all of the assignments that they could do. They may or may not finish all of them in the school year. And then on the other side, it has, either information about their elements of art or their principles of design, or it has information or questions about where they can find certain supplies. So after talking to my second graders, and which is very interesting because I usually talk to my fifth graders at the end of the school year, and that's how I've changed and modified and molded my teaching. After talking to my second graders this year, they pretty much said to me, if there's too many words, that's too confusing, I can't handle this. So I was like, yeah, you're right. I had started making PECs or picture images for my special ed students so that they could get the choice of, okay, this project or this project. And I made that in a choice board for them. But I thought, why not take that same idea and do a folder? That way they don't need to, the paras don't need to go and get that choice board constantly. They can just whip out the folder and point to the choices. So this here is my 4th and 5th grade folder. For example, food designer, okay, they have a variety of different food. There's different things that they can do. So it is able to change from one year to the next. Not only that, but the materials that I provide my students sort of changes. They can still use the materials that they've used before. But for example, printmaking, in my second graders will use transparencies, and they'll color on it with marker. We'll wet the paper, and then we'll transfer the image from the transparency to the paper. Third grade has that option. They also have the option of stamps, but third grade is now given the jelly plate prints. So they can use those 3 different resources. And then fourth graders have, the stamps, the transparencies, the jelly plates, but they're also given the foam print plates. So they can do etching into the foam and doing their prints. 5th grade has all of those things, and I might start, instead of doing reductive, start building prints that they can try to do with cardboard sheets, but we haven't gotten there yet. So the different media does change, or we add on to it over time. That's important. So this is my 2nd and 3rd grade sheet. Again, very similar, different lessons or different assignments, but they're a little more focused in the beginning, and then they have a little more leeway in the end. So my third idea was to move the students to the next table clockwise, like idea 1. So instead of moving those tubs, I moved the students. In doing that, it works good for those classes that have behavior issues, the classes that, X can't sit next to Y, so on and so forth. So I can keep them separated. It's a little confusing to me because I have to remember, just mark it down in my schedule as to when I'm moving the students. But the checklist was an awesome idea. Um, it helped the kids. They got to pick their assignment, but I got to pick the media that they were using. So everything seems to be good with that, depending on the class. I did notice in both my idea 3 and idea 2, my students need some better classroom, or not classroom management, but time management. So we're working on that. So idea number 4, I want to shout out to Maya in Delaware, because she pushed me to realize that not everyone has the same idea of choice as I do. And I didn't do a very good job explaining choice in my Delaware state presentation. So, as I said before, you could do the choice of media, you could do the choice of subject, but I think Maya brought up the fact that she would be doing three-dimensional, she was doing three-dimensional art with her students. But if she wants to do three-dimensional art, she can't really give them the choice of pastels or, painting or whatever. So she's like, I'm kind of stuck. And I realized, yeah, she's right. She is kind of stuck. But at the same time, is she? Because like I said with printmaking, although 3D, you're stuck with three-dimensional art, there are still so many different ways to make three-dimensional art. You can use plaster of Paris. You can use the plaster of Paris strips or the actual plaster. You can use clay. You can use paper or cardboard. And there's wood, different objects, found objects, putting them together. So it's being able to give your kids the things they need. I personally, my 3D area is what my custodian calls the tornado zone, but it's really good because that's my cheapest area, because I have parents who give me things that, they have extra of, they want to get rid of their house, get out of their house. And so my students use those. I don't have enough supplies to do an entire class lesson with the things the teachers or the parents give me. But when I put it over in my 3D section, it's like magical land for the kids, and they love it. So how I use choice-based learning, or TAB, during COVID. There's a presentation here, and I don't think I'm going to play it because I'm not really sure if it's recording the sound from those presentations. So you can click on this. Again, I am going to share this with you. I will just quick touch it just so you understand. It's just another presentation, and simply these are some ideas on how to make your own paint. Various different types of paint, which is very helpful to the kids to understand. With the 3D sculptures, this is a lot of different sculptures that kids can make, and even something that one of my students did. And here are some of my printmaking examples. These are videos that I've done. In addition, you will be getting a link to my YouTube channel, and you can peruse that and feel free to use anything there you want. So then is a little bit more, but we're going to go back to the main one. All right, so here we are. Here is my Google Drive with the folder with all the helpful things that I went over. Um, I, I feel like I said a million times. I'm so sorry about that. And I apologize if, you know, you're one of those people who likes, someone's face in the presentation. To be honest, I've been waving my hands at my computer. It looks a little ridiculous. I do talk with my hands, but I was afraid that my picture would go over top of some of the words in my presentation. So I wanted to make sure you guys could read or see whatever you needed to see. I know some of my slides do have a lot of words on them, but again, because I'm sharing this presentation, I thought it would be easy for you to click on anything that you need. Please feel free to copy and edit anything that you are interested in. But again, please make sure you copy it. I believe I only made it so that you can view, so you do need to copy or download into your own Google Drive or onto your computer, and that way you can edit things or get ideas from it. My information here is below, my email address, or you can call or text me. Honestly, using the phone is probably the best way to get a hold of me. Sometimes I don't like email. Here is my YouTube channel. And I have started a site or through Canva that I want to put a lot of my information on it so my students can interact with it, almost like they have their own little Mrs. Brenlinger sitting right next to them. But again, thank you. Stay happy and healthy. I'm here to lean on anytime you need for support. If you have any questions, any ideas, anything you want to put, fly by me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. And again, I really hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that maybe I answered some questions that you had. I really think I would have appreciated someone not only giving me the beautiful, amazing version of their choice-based learning, but also telling me the flaws. Because, we know every single school is different, every teacher is different, every class is different, the students are different. So what I find works for me, the best, absolute best thing is after you've played with this, or even during playing with this, don't be afraid to ask your students what they think. They'll be very honest with you and tell you their favorite projects or tell you what's a little overwhelming to them. Like I said in my presentation, I usually ask my 5th graders before they move on to 6th grade, but I'm really glad that I took the opportunity to ask my 2nd graders because they were able to give me a little more insight. And I know through this entire presentation, I focused on my 2nd through 5th grade. I just realized that I didn't explain why necessarily. So 2nd through 5th grade I try to do more teaching for artistic behavior where they are the artist and they are in control of the assignment that I'm giving them. I've always told my students, as long as you do the criteria that I'm asking, I don't care what else you add. And that's sort of how I look at kindergarten and 1st grade. So I may teach them how to draw a dragon, but I'll also show them what a happy face looks like, a sad face, an angry face, and the eyebrows, the mouth, the eyes, different characteristics so that they can change the mood of their dragon to what fits their needs or their thoughts and feelings. Once that is done, they've completed the assignment to what I've asked them to do. From there, if they want to put an alien flying in the sky next to the dragon, go for it. If they want to make their dragon a princess ballerina with a tutu on, I don't care. As long as they've done what I've asked them to do and they've shown me they understand how to do whatever concept I'm teaching. After the drawing, typically I give them one type of supply and I teach them a technique and I have them use that technique. But I encourage them, for example, if we're painting, I teach them the proper way to take care of their instrument or their paintbrush. And then I allow them to experiment a little bit. As long as they're being nice to their paintbrush, it's okay to try different things. Sometimes the students teach me things that they enjoy or teach me how they view the world so that I can better teach them. So again, thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that I answered as many of your questions as I could. If I did not and you would like more, please feel free to email me or call me. Check out my YouTube channel or any of the other information in my Google Drive. Thank you and have a wonderful day.